I know it's football season and playoffs, but baseball's right around the corner, folks. Hi, everybody. I'm John Harris from the cheap seats here from Public John Media. How you guys doing? I hope everybody's okay. We've got mostly football to talk about, but I wanted to make a little quick change there for you because there's a little bit of baseball news. How about a new soap opera called the Carlos Correa saga? Originally, he decided to opt out from the Minnesota Twins and become a free agent. He could have stayed with the Twins for a nice salary, but thought, hey, I'm going to do great in free agency. Had a contract signed with the San Francisco Giants for about 350 mil for a whole bunch of years. I believe 10, it might have been 12. But when he went to take the physical, we had a problem with an old injury showing up on the physical. Though he has had no problems with it, he had hurt an ankle, his right ankle, in the minors years ago and had surgery. Hasn't had a problem with it since he came to the majors, but the concern is wear and tear could cause a problem, and the teams don't want to guarantee much money for that kind of a situation. So the Giants said there's a problem here. That gave a little loophole to that agent of all agents, everybody's favorite Scott Boras. And of course, Scott Boras decides we're going to go look elsewhere then, since you're hesitating. They hadn't completely taken the offer off the table, but they decided, the Giants did, that there's a little hesitation and we might want to rework it a little bit and get some guarantees. Boras says no, 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 and decides to take his client to the New York Mets, who coveted him deeply and offered him for a couple of last years 312 million. Well, a little bit of a problem came up, and Steve Cohen, the New York Mets owner, flat out said, "We're signing him. He's going to be ours." Well, you can't do that in Major League Baseball without some kind of a problem, because guess what? Carlos Correa still failed the Mets physical, and they're still trying to work that out. It's been weeks now, and Correa still unsigned with anyone, and now he can't even play for the Twins. Will he get signed? I'm sure somebody will sign him, and it may still be the Mets, and even the Giants are still in talks, and supposedly a couple other teams. But it won't be for the money he was hoping, and it won't probably be for as long. And there's probably going to be conditions in the contract now to guarantee that the team doesn't have to continue to pay him if he gets hurt in that one specific right ankle. So the Carlos Correa saga continues. It's been a couple of months now. It's getting close to spring training time in February, where Bill and I will be back together to go ahead and go over all the baseball stuff for you, with lots of free agents and changes and signings, a couple of trades, some new managers, all kinds of baseball news. But most of it doesn't really have to kick in and be reviewed until after the Super Bowl. So we're going to wait until after mid-February, which is when baseball starts up spring training. Catchers and pitchers report in most cases in the middle of the month, then the week later the rest of the players do. That's when Bill and I will take a show or two and go over all these things for you, and who went where, and who do we think won the free agent pool, who do we think had the best offseason player attainment wise, and of course, our picks as to who do we think is going to go where, which last week, nobody, or last year, I'm sorry, nobody would have picked the Phillies to get to the World Series. So you never know. Your favorite team could get there. Meanwhile, there's other sports news to talk about too. First off, you can see the background behind me. Damar Hamlin from the Buffalo Bills, as everybody knows by now, has suffered a heart attack, a cardiac arrest moment on the field. Here is a chance for everybody, if they know of or know a first responder, to thank them and appreciate what they do, because the doctors at the hospital at the University of Cincinnati said those on field first responders saved this young man's life. And the best news we could have gotten today, which is Friday, uh, is that Damar Hamlin, the tube was removed from him that was incubating him and helping him breathe. And he was able to actually speak today, and he talked to his team by a Zoom meeting or FaceTime. I'm not sure which, but he was able to talk to his brothers, his teammates from Buffalo remotely. He is speaking He has movement in all extremities. Obviously, it's going to be a slow process of recovery for him, but it appears, according to doctors, that he has all of his brain function. The reason for that is the quick response on the team. They said within 1 minute, not just the Buffalo Bills. I said the team. I met from all the people there, Cincinnati, everybody. He was being given CPR within 1 minute of collapsing. That's astounding. That's phenomenal. So, and that's apparently what has saved his life and saved brain function, because when you're without oxygen for more than a couple of minutes, the brain starts to suffer and cause permanent damage. So we want to reach out. I know we're just a little show here, but we want to reach out and say thank you to all the first responders, not just the folks on the field that saved this young man's life, but to all first responders who do this on a daily basis, and the training they go through and everything they go through to do it. Here's an example of why they do it. It worked perfectly. So that being said, we congratulate him. We continue to send well wishes to Damar Hamlin, the Buffalo Bills, thanks to the Cincinnati Bengals, and all those players saw all this happen. So it's still a little bit of a traumatic event for him. It's not going to be just something that goes away, but obviously everybody's happy that he's on the road to recovery, and that's great news. There were a couple of people who on social media that were journalists who kind of blasted the guy that he tackled. And after going over the play, T. Higgins from Cincinnati caught the ball. And after going over that play a zillion times, well, I don't know about a zillion, but quite a few times, he did nothing out of the ordinary. Most people that know the game at all will tell you that he was basically running. He put his head down. There'll probably be some kind of a rule or an enforcement of an existing rule to try to stop that, but that's just a reaction play. He did nothing dirty. And in all honesty, I'm glad for him at this point, because no matter what, even if you don't do anything wrong, when you see something like that happen, obviously he was had to be feeling some kind of guilt, obviously a lot of remorse. So the fact that Damar Hamlin's going to recover is great news, and people just back off this guy. He didn't make a dirty hit. He didn't do anything wrong. He got tackled. He was the guy that caught the ball. So if anybody out there is thinking that T. Higgins, the receiver, did something wrong, they're way off base here. So they got to back off of that. That basically is sports news, except we did hear that Jim Harbaugh has talked to 2 owners in the NFL, but the Michigan coach. And of course, now that news came out, I don't like coincidence. Suddenly the NCAA is conducting an investigation into Michigan football, saying that they have some improprieties. With all the rule changes in the NCAA, I don't know how there could be a recruitment impropriety, because you could pay them now. You could practically pay them straight up. So I don't know what kind of impropriety they could have that they're going to try to go after Jim Harbaugh with. But I don't know if anything's going to stick or if it's anything real serious. But he has talked to 2 owners, supposedly the Denver Broncos and the Carolina Panthers. But he has said, his statement is, he expects, he goes, you never know, but he expects to be enthusiastically coaching the Michigan Wolverines next season. So we'll see what happens there. But his name pops up every season in the NFL because he did have a successful NFL career as well, a smaller one in duration, but we'll see what happens. As you obviously know by now, Bill is not here with us today. We hope he will be back next week for the playoffs. That's his hope. We mentioned that Damar Hamlin and the folks that are giving to his charity, that's terrific. It's great. But I do want to say something here. This is more editorializing. This is my own point of view here. All the money that's going to him is going to a worthwhile charity. However, there are people out there who really need help as well. Bill's family is going through a very bad time. Emotionally, they've suffered a tremendous loss. And uh, on top of that, now his wife, who has an infant baby, they have an infant child together. The loss of her husband and Bill's son-in-law, which happened Christmas night of all things, is devastating, completely unexpected. It was due to an accident, and he was burned, obviously severely enough to take his life. And we here see, last I knew, it was over $6 million given to Damar Hamlin's charity, and that's great. But this person, and there's quite a few others like this in this country, this person passed away, and now his family has to worry about medical bills. Medical bills don't go away when you pass away, folks. I don't know if you guys think that, but they don't. There's still lingering medical bills, which are going to be very expensive. Of course, there's because he wasn't originally from New Jersey where the accident happened and where they were temporarily staying. He's from Florida. So now there's 2 memorial services and that have to be obviously paid for. And of course, you've got a young girl who's about 21 years old. I shouldn't say girl, she's an adult, but you have a young lady who has an infant child at 21 years old, I believe, who is now going to have to raise her. And she wasn't working. She's not working because he was getting ready to start police academy in Florida in a few weeks, which is where he's from. So everything took an awful, terrible 180 for these folks. But they're not going to get over $6 million in donations. But there is a GoFundMe page, and I know people will probably try to blast me for this. And if they do, that's fine. I'm allowed to have an opinion. You can take your cancel culture and cancel it. Okay. I'm tired of that crap. People can have opinions. And mine is, we need to step up to help people like this. There's more of them. Now, this is a situation, obviously, I'm very familiar with. But there are situations you folks are familiar with. And in this case, there is a GoFundMe page. I'll put the link in the Facebook and social media posts. And please, whatever you do, spread the word, not just for this particular situation, which is obviously selfishly, I hope you do, but also other situations that you come across that people really need help out there sometimes. These folks gonna have to worry about therapy. And there's 7 or 8 people at least that were involved in this, between his parents, Billy and his wife and his family as well, and of course, the young man's wife, and they're going to have some help to talk about this, and at their own time frame and whatever. But those things aren't cheap, folks. Those things get expensive, and you hate to see people have issues and problems because they can't afford it. That is one of the problems in this country. If you are fortunate enough to get yourself to a place of where you have a platform like this particular situation, it's easier to raise money. With a situation like a pro football player, a pro athlete, a celebrity, it's easier for them to raise money because they have exposure to the public. However, a situation like Billy's family, they don't have that platform. And outside of friends spreading the word, even on social media, there's no way for them to publicize this and people go, oh, I know that guy. He's the guy on TV. He's the guy that does this. Bill's a regular guy, like the rest of us out there, the working stiffs. He's still working for a living. So we I think we really need to be more cognizant of people who are in situations like this and figure out a way to help them. Even if it's not financially that you can help them, spread the word. Tell other people that, hey, this guy has, his family has a real hard time. The description of everything is on the GoFundMe page. So when you hit that link, um, you'll see the background and specifics that the family put the statement out. That's why if I sound a little vague, it's because it should come from them. Except I know enough to know that they're going to need help. So we need to step up, not just for them, but we need to step up for people that are in situations like this. And we know people out there who are. So I just say, please, 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 please look at the link. It's going to be on the YouTube comment section. It's going to be on Facebook, on all the pages I have. I'm sure Bill will repost it. I think he will, obviously. So we just want to get that word out there and see if we can get some help for the Smith family. Here, and that endeth the, I guess, I don't know if you want to call it a tangent or some kind of a rant or a lecture, but it's something that I think is just very important. So please click on that link, take a look at what's going on, and see if we can't help these folks out. All right. It's a tough transition and segue, but the reason we're here every week is to go over sports news. We did a little recap of some of it in the beginning. Now we will start. I'll do my football picks. Like I said, Billy he's tied up with everything, so he's not going to be back this week. We're hoping he can help out with the playoffs, or at least send us some information if he can. But if he can't, folks, you got to understand that there's a lot of reasons why this little football show on social media is nowhere near as important as what those folks are going through. So that being said, as Bill likes to say, let's move on here a little bit. We're going to try and transition into football. There is some football news as well. And of course, playoff seedings with this situation in Buffalo, where the game with Buffalo and Cincinnati, I should say, the game was suspended on the field. The NFL has decided they are not going to try and play that game. And at first I was like, oh, it affects so many people, but you know what? It's a football game. I think it's the right move. We put those two teams back in Cincinnati, the field where this event with Damar happened, is not really a great idea. It could bring back a lot of bad memories. A lot of people would try to focus, and football's a dangerous game. If you're not focused, you leave yourself open to injury as well. So I think it's the right move. They've come up with some scenarios on how to figure out how to continue with the playoffs and things like that. And no matter what they choose, the only one that seems a little iffy is there could be one between Baltimore and Cincinnati that could come down to a coin flip. That one's a little off the wall to me, but it could. I guess there's no other way to settle that particular situation. But a lot of things unusual things would have to happen for that to occur. I'm not going to go into all of it. All I can tell you is that if the Kansas City Chiefs win in the AFC, they will be considered the number 1 seed. But if it's a point where they face Buffalo, who will have one less game played, so it wouldn't necessarily be fair to them to punish them for this situation. The Chiefs and Buffalo would play at a neutral site for the championship game if they both reach that level for the AFC championship, instead of it being at Arrowhead or in Buffalo. There's a fairness issue. Buffalo shouldn't be punished because of something that happened that was very unfortunate, and have to go to Arrowhead. And I'm a huge Chiefs fan, but I am in somewhat agreement there that you can't punish somebody for something that's out of their control. So that basically is the biggest thing. The only other possibility too is that Buffalo could lose, Kansas City could lose, Cincinnati could win. If that happens, then you're back to the Cincinnati Buffalo situation. And I think, again, they're saying that that will be at a neutral site. So the scenarios are available to see on NFL.com as well as ESPN.com and FoxSports.com and CBS SportsLine.com. So all the sports things will have it if you want to look it up. But that's basically it. So that being said, let's go into our picks. Last week I picked where was it here? I had a good week, pretty much, folks. Straight picks, 12-3. Had a good week there picking, had nothing to do with the spread, just the straight up game picks. 12-3 and 10-5 against the spread. So I'd have made you a few bucks because that was 67% for the week against the spread. So that's pretty good. As far as whether Bill and I do anything, Bill's we're going to go with percentages, obviously, at the end because of the weeks that are missed, but that's fine. We're in it to try and stay with Vegas. We're not necessarily, we have a friendly competition, but basically it's to try and show that we're our two methods, and we both use different methods. I use an eye test, which is why it usually takes me 2 or 3 weeks to get in groove. Bill uses numbers more, analytics, some. He's not, he uses a little bit of an eye test too. But he didn't pick last week. I had a really good week, but I think Bill would have as well. So overall, Bill is 140, 97, and 2. On straight on picks, he is at 59%. I am at, I can tell you here, boom, 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 boom. Can I tell you here? Let me see. Yes, I can. Here we go. I am at 131, 118 with 3 pushes at 52.6%. So we're like right on the money. Very close to Vegas's picks because it's been a very unusual NFL year. So that being said, the games that did throw things off last week, at least for me, Washington, of course, because Carson Wentz, I think, has proven that he can't prove anything. I think Carson Wentz is his best NFL days are behind him, and he only had a few weeks of that in Philadelphia when he first started out. I think he's proven he's no good. Here's how bad it is. Washington is starting their number 3 quarterback when they play this week. So, and Wentz could play, Heineke could play, but they're all like, yeah. So after last week, Wentz showed that he's just not there. The Washington game, of course, threw us off. Kansas City, the spread was too high, 12.5, and I wouldn't buck it. I stayed with the Chiefs, and Denver beat the spread, of course. So that was a loss for me. And let's see, there was a double loss somewhere else up here. Oh, no, Miami, New England. New England covered the spread, which I did have, but Miami lost the game. Same with Pittsburgh and New Orleans. I thought, or Philadelphia and New Orleans, I thought Philadelphia win. They did not. I did have New Orleans beating the spread, and they did that. So I had a couple glitches there, and they were the ones. So now let's go into our picks for this week. We'll go over. I'll do them, and we'll go from there. There are 3 games Saturday. So we'll do those first. Let me see if I can find which ones they are for you, because they didn't make that decision until the weekend. It looks like, actually, you know what? I will find out for you because I can. That's the kind of guy I am. Will be 100% positive. Because that's pretty close to important, if you ask me. It will be Sunday, Saturday. Here we go. Saturday night. There's 2 games Saturday. One is the Kansas City game. It's the earlier game of the 2. It will be, and as soon as I find it, I believe it's Vegas. It is. Kansas City is going to Vegas. and that is at 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 Central, which is, of course, Kansas City's time frame. They will be going to Las Vegas. The Raiders are picked by 9. I think Jarrett Stidham looks like a pretty good quarterback choice maybe for Vegas. The Chiefs secondary is a little iffy. It's been banged up. I think the Chiefs will win the game. I think Vegas will cover the 9 points. So you have that one right there. I think Kansas City wins the game, but the Raiders will cover the spread. The other Saturday game is Tennessee and Jacksonville. That is 4. Now, the Chiefs need to win to keep their number 1 seed or get the number 1 seed throughout the playoffs and get a home field bye or get a bye first week. Saturday night at after the Chiefs game, Saturday night, Tennessee goes to Jacksonville. Ryan Tannehill is still out. They're starting their third stringer, who they started last week, who is technically the rocket scientist. He is, and that's for real. Jacksonville is picked by 6.5. They thumped Tennessee earlier in the year. The big deal here, though, is that was Tennessee not having Derrick Henry. They do have him this week. The winner will win the division. Who would have thought Jacksonville, after the last few seasons, would do it? But Doug Peterson's done a great turnaround in Jacksonville in just 1 season. And Jacksonville is actually playing for a division title. So no matter what, hats off to Doug Peterson from Jacksonville, the Philadelphia Eagles Super Bowl winning coach. The only coach that's ever won a Super Bowl in Philadelphia. So, he's proven that he knows what he's talking about in Jacksonville. He's proven it. So Tennessee, Jacksonville, 6.5. I'm going to say Jacksonville across the board for right now, because that third string quarterback for Tennessee, I just can't see. Tannehill's out, and the second string didn't do very well. The first string kid did okay last week against Dallas, but it's a tall order to ask him to come in and make his second start of his NFL career and go against a pretty good team. So Jacksonville favored 6.5. For now, I'm going to stick with Jacksonville across the board and go from there. Now to go to the rest of the games. Here we go. The rest are Sunday. There is no Monday night game. There's no Thursday night game, as you know, because I didn't even film this for Thursday night game. This is Friday as we go here. Arizona, San Francisco. Arizona's playing a third string quarterback no one's heard of. Colt McCoy is out. Kyler Murray's out. It's the last game of the season. You're not going to see them. Also, their best running back, James Conner, is out, hurt. And DeAndre Hopkins is out, hurt. So for San Francisco, Deebo Samuel is questionable. Brock Purdy's questionable. Brock Purdy's going to play. And I think Samuel will play. It wouldn't surprise me if they get a big lead, though, and those guys get shut down near halftime, because Arizona's not going to have a whole lot of offense. The other thing to note here is it is J.J. Watt's final game. He has called it a career. He's retiring, of course. He announced it a couple of weeks ago. A great player, Arizona defensive end, and wish him all the best. He's still got 2 brothers playing in Pittsburgh. Both of them are playing for the Steelers, but JJ is going to retire. He's got a wife and about a 2 or 3 month old baby now. And he had a lot of injuries for 2 or 3 years. So he got through this season, I think, with a couple of dings. But after tomorrow, he's going to start doing things he wants to do in life. Congratulations to him, and thanks to him for being a class act and a great player, multi-All-Pro. Congratulations to him. So if you have a chance to watch that and you want to see JJ for a couple of plays, it'd be cool. At noon Sunday, Baltimore will play Cincinnati in a huge game. That is for a division championship. It's in Cincinnati. They are picked by 9.5, and you're going, why would it be 9.5? That's a high spread. Well, at this point, it looks like, well, we know Lamar Jackson's out, their starter. It looks like Hundley is going to be out. They haven't said it for sure, but it really looks like he's going to be out, which means they're starting their third stringer against Cincinnati, who doesn't have too bad a defense. So with Jackson out, They're picked. Cincinnati's picked by 9.5, and I'm going to stick with it because I just don't think that Baltimore is going to have an offense that'll surprise anybody. Also, Jackson is out, the receiver for Baltimore. It looks like he's going to be out as well. So Djax, the former Eagle and former few other teams, but breakaway speed, always a threat, and it looks like he's not going to make it either. So Baltimore's behind the 8 ball, Cincinnati by 9.5, and I'm taking them across the board. Carolina versus New Orleans. New Orleans has a slim shot at the division. Actually, they do not. I apologize. They have a slim shot at the playoffs, but too many things would have to go perfectly, and Carolina's out. They were eliminated last week when Tampa Bay beat them. Taysom Hill for New Orleans, who is a huge part of their offense, is questionable at best, they said. Carolina, they're playing in the Superdome. New Orleans is picked by 3.5. I took Carolina to win the game, New Orleans to cover, even though it's only 3.5. I think it's going to be a close game, but New Orleans will probably win in the end by a field goal or something. I think it's going to be a close game, but New Orleans will win. Also Sunday at noon, noon our time here Central, Cleveland and Pittsburgh. Big game there for the Steelers. They are picked by 2.5. A lot has to happen, but the Steelers are not mathematically out of it. They are favored by 2.5. Minkah Fitzpatrick, their all-pro safety, is questionable. Everybody else is supposed to be on board except a little bit of news out of Cleveland. Jadeveon Clowney went home today, was sent home by Cleveland, the former all-pro defensive end, and he has stated to reporters he does not think he will be back in Cleveland next year. So apparently there's a problem there between Clowney and the Browns. That little bit of news came out today. Pittsburgh's picked by 2.5. It's in Pittsburgh. I'm taking Pittsburgh. I really like their cornerback, Kenny Pickett. He's going to be a star, I think. He's pretty close to that now. A couple more pieces, and Pittsburgh's going to be right back in the playoff hunt every year. This is kind of a big game for them, too, because Mike Tomlin, their coach, has never finished below 500. If they win this game, they will assure that that's the case again. And we're talking over a couple of decades. So Pittsburgh over Cleveland, 2.5, and we're taking Pittsburgh across the board. Dallas and Washington. That we said Washington is playing Sam Howell, who has never done anything in the NFL at all ever. He's a rookie. He is getting his first NFL start. Dallas, meanwhile, is favored by 7. If they take a big lead, you'll see them start to sit people. But they need to win, because if Philly loses and Dallas wins, Dallas would be the divisional champ and could have a shot at that #1 seed. So Dallas is going to come out guns blazing, but if they get a big lead, they're liable to sit some people sometime in the second half so nobody gets hurt. But we'll see what happens. That's at 3:25 Central on Sunday, 4:25 Eastern in Washington. Detroit at Green Bay, the Lambeau Field. That's Sunday night football. That's the only out of Sunday day game we have left. That is for a playoff spot. The likelihood now, the only way it won't be is if Seattle wins Sunday, Detroit would be out. Green Bay still has a shot, but Detroit would be out. Green Bay's picked by 5. I love the way Detroit's trending. I mean, big changes for them this year. Dan Campbell's done one hell of a job in Detroit, biting kneecaps and everything else he tells his team. But they're just a player or two short, and they started this season run a little bit late. Green Bay barely. They've won a few in a row, and I keep thinking back. He didn't say it this time, but he has said it in this situation before. Aaron Rodgers, RELAX. When they were starting to blast the Packers, Rodgers was basically, without using the words this time like he did a couple years ago, relax. And the same thing happened. They clipped off 4 and 5 in a row as they did that time, and they got in the playoffs, and they got all the way to the championship game for the NFC. So don't count Green Bay out. They're starting to click a little bit on offense. I'm taking Green Bay, and I'm giving up the 5 to Detroit. It wouldn't surprise me though if Detroit hangs in there to make it closer than that. But it's Green Bay, it's Lambeau, it's going to be cold, it's January, and the Packers are on a run with Aaron Rodgers. So it's going to be Green Bay, I think, by more than 5. I'm taking the Packers across the board. Early game Sunday, 1 Eastern noon Central is the game that outside of the 2 cities nobody will want to watch, and that is Houston at Indy. I feel very bad for Jeff Saturday, who I've always kind of liked. I don't know him personally, but I've always liked how he's a no-nonsense guy, but he's low-key. He doesn't get excited. He's in there as an interim coach. Who knows if he wants to be a full-time coach? I don't think so. My personal opinion was he was there to evaluate staff and to evaluate players and give those results and reports back to the owner, Robert Irsay. That's my opinion there. So it's Houston against Indy. Indy is picked by 3. Man, this one's tough for me, but Indy starting Sam Ehlinger because Foles is hurt, and they've sat Matt Ryan down forever. Ehlinger had 2 games already this season, and to me just looked awful. I think, I hate to say it, but I think Houston's going to win the game, and I think they're going to cover the 3-point spread. They've played some tough teams, and I think Houston's going to win this thing. So I'm picking Houston over Indy. Nick Foles is out, like we said, as well for the Colts after getting hurt last week. We already talked about the Chiefs and the Raiders, the Chargers and Denver. The Chargers have a couple guys out. Actually, it's Denver that has a couple guys out. Yeah. So, but it looks like the Chargers are on a roll. They're picked by only 3. It's in Denver. That's probably why. Denver's defense is pretty good, but Dustin Herbert, the quarterback for the Chargers, is the man. Eller has been going crazy. And now Mike Williams is back as well. And then they're just playing. And Keenan Allen, their receivers, they're just playing. They're starting to get it now. And now's the time of year you want to. I think the Chargers will cover over the Broncos. It's only a 3-point spread, like we said. I'm taking the Chargers to cover and go across the board. The Raiders and Seattle. I'm sorry, it's the Rams in Seattle. It's a shame. I like Baker Mayfield. I like the style of game he plays. He's tough as nails. But Seattle needs this game. If they win it, they're in the playoffs. They need this game. It's in Seattle against that quote-unquote 12th man, which is the crowd. I think the Raiders will hang in there for a while, but I think Seattle will pull away in the end. The spread is 6. I think I'm going to change that part. I'm going to say that the Raiders will hang around for a bit. And I think the Raiders may cover the spread. It's a 6-point spread. I'm going to take the Raiders on the spread, but Seattle to win the game. And that's just a hunch. You know, Stidham looked pretty good last week, and I think he could be the real deal. We might find out a little bit more this week against Seattle, so we'll see what happens. But I'm going Raiders to cover, Seattle to win the game. Seattle will make the playoffs. We've got Minnesota and Chicago. For Chicago, Justin Fields is out, their quarterback. The spread right now is 6. Without Fields, it could very well be a slaughter, even though it's in Chicago. But you never know with Minnesota. They're so up and down. I mean, they're in the playoffs. They already know it. They may rest people now. Who knows? Because I think their position is kind of set. So it'll be Minnesota against the Bears in Chicago, Soldier Field, Sunday at 1 noon Central. Minnesota by 6, and I'm taking Minnesota across the board. I don't see how Chicago's even going to score points, to be honest. Not on offense anyway. Maybe somebody will break a run. They have a couple good running backs, but other than that, I just don't see it. Also, early game Sunday, New England at Buffalo. Huge game for Buffalo, of course. They're picked by 7.5. It is home. That's going to be such an emotional day, between getting all the good news from Damar Hamlin, um, all the positive stuff that's come out of Buffalo as far as how close the fans are with the team. Um, I think Buffalo, even though New England's got a good defense, Buffalo's going to come out there with a chip on their shoulder, something to prove. And now they're going to be playing not only just for the fans of Buffalo, who it's like we said, it's a very close relationship between the team and the city. They're also going to be playing for their fallen brother Damar. So they're going to be out there really just knocking heads. I really believe that. Otherwise, I probably would have taken New England to cover, but I don't think so. I think Buffalo's going to come out there and just go nuts. So Buffalo over New England, and I'm taking them across the board by the 7.5. They'll win by more than that. The Giants and the Eagles, interesting game. Jalen Hurts is considered questionable. The official news last we knew just a half hour ago was that Hurts is quote unquote trending to start. And most people in Eagles camp think he will be the starter this week. Philly needs this game. If they win it, they're the number 1 seed in the NFC. If they lose it and Dallas beats Washington, which is a pretty good chance of that, the Eagles obviously are in the playoffs, but they won't be the number 1 seed. Dallas will take over the division and would be the number 1 seed. So the Eagles need to win this game. The spread is 14 points. At first, I was going to go with the Giants to cover, but it looks like the Giants, who are in the playoffs, but they can't move anywhere. It looks like they're sitting a lot of people so that nobody gets hurt. So even if they start them, they're going to sit them eventually. So I think Philadelphia is going to cover. It's an early game. Well, it's a late game Sunday. I apologize. It's 4:25 Eastern, 3:25 Central. Giants, Eagles in Philly. Philly's got to play big time to win. It's a 14-point spread, but I think they're going to cover it because I think they want to come out, take it. I think the Giants are going to sit people. If they don't sit them at the start of the game, they'll sit them, maybe after the first quarter or something. They don't want anybody seriously hurt because of the playoffs coming. So I think Philly is going to cover, and I think they're going to cover big. No real injury news to say there, except that Hurts is questionable, but it does look like he's going to play. But if they get a huge lead, don't be surprised if he sits too at some point. If they sit him and some of the starters down, we'll see what happens there. Miami and the Jets, it's in Miami. Huge game for the Dolphins. They're playing for a playoff spot. The Jets are out of it. Mike White, who had hurt his ribs, he played last week with bad ribs. But since the Jets are out of it, Robert Saleh, the head coach of the Jets, is like, I'm not risking this kid. There's nothing for us to play for. But this will tell you on the evolutionary list here of what's going to happen with Zach Wilson. He is still not starting. Joe Flacco is going to start Sunday. So that's kind of like putting Methuselah in there. It's like dusting me off and having me go out there and throw passes for the New York Jets because I have almost as much mobility with artificial knees as Joe Flacco has with his real ones. It's not a pick on Joe Flacco. He's just older. He was a pretty good quarterback in his day, but his day is over. But he is starting and not Zach Wilson, the number 2 draft pick of a couple years ago. So I think we have seen the last of Zach Wilson in a Jets uniform. I don't even know if he's going to be holding a clipboard or anything. We'll see. But Miami's picked by only 3. And the reason for that is that Skylar Thompson, he's the 3rd stringer for Miami. He has to start because Tua is still out on concussion protocol and may not play even if they make the playoffs anymore this season. And Teddy Bridgewater has the injury to his pinky on his throwing hand, which was dislocated, and he can't grip or throw a football. So Skylar Thompson is your quarterback for Miami, who are still picked by 3. And I think that's because they have 2 great receivers and a good tight end in Waddle. Waddle, a great receiver, as well as, of course, Tyreek Hill, Galecki, the tight end, and then you've got Gadecki. I apologize, and Wilson is still a pretty good running back there, Jeff Wilson. So Miami's got more on offense, and I think it's going to be an outscoring of the Jets. Handoff and short passes that those other guys will probably break. And Thompson is mobile, so he can run a little bit. So it's Miami picked by 3. I'm gonna take Miami. It's an early game Sunday, 1 Eastern, 12 Central. Last but not least, well, maybe least, Tampa Bay and Atlanta. It's in Atlanta. Atlanta's picked by 4. You would say, why would Atlanta be picked over Tom Brady and the Buccaneers, even though they're going to win the division with a less than 500 record? Because the Buccaneers, winning the division already, have nothing to play for. So they may play some players for a while, but don't be surprised if some others don't play. Because again, with the playoffs coming, you don't want anybody hurt. Atlanta plays teams tough and stays close. They've got the rookie quarterback going, Ritter, I think, but they don't have a whole lot of other offense. They've got a pretty good running back, but they're going to be able to beat New England because they're picked by 4. I'm going to take them, and I'm going to take them to win it. I think they might score enough. Actually, I'm going to pick them to win it, but I'm going to think Tampa Bay. I keep calling Tampa Bay New England, and have ever since Brady went there. I think New England might cover. It may only be a field goal game because neither team scores a lot of points. New England's defense is pretty good, but I said New England. I even wrote New England again. It's not New England. It's Tampa. Tampa Bay. I think Tampa's going to cover. Their defense isn't great. I apologize. I was confusing with New England. But Atlanta's going to win it. But Tampa may cover. I think they're going to cover the 4-point spread. So that being said, that's pretty much it. I don't really have a major upset pick of the week. Maybe Vegas with the spread against Kansas City. The Raiders with the spread against Kansas City. That might be my upset pick of the week. So there you have it, folks. That's pretty much it. The first games are Saturday. If you're watching this Friday night, tomorrow, or if you're watching it Saturday morning, stick around because pretty soon you'll see somewhere in the afternoon, it'll be Kansas City going to Vegas, baby. And let's hope what happens in Vegas leaves Vegas, which is the Chiefs for the win. All right. So, and of course, I'm hoping personally Philly beats the Giants, and of course I hope they beat them by more than 14. But for everybody here at Public John Media and from the cheap seats, we hope Bill does everything he can for his family. Remember, please check the Facebook posts for the link to help out Billy's family with all the things that they need. We're glad that DeMar is doing a lot better, and we're happy for him and the Buffalo Bills, but especially DeMar Hamlin and his family. The fact that within 4 or 5 days of him suffering this coronary event on the football field in front of millions, basically, is that he's able to already walk, or not walk, I'm sorry. He's conscious, has all his extremities, he has brain function, and he can talk. Man, that's great news. And again, please thank and recognize your first responders. I mean, they saved this guy's life, and that's just a public example of what these folks do, no matter where they're at, every day by taking quick, decisive action, making decisions immediately and acting on them. So that's police officers, that's firefighters, EMTs, paramedics, athletic trainers in this case, who are trained as well, and learn CPR, because that's what saved DeMar Hamlin's life was CPR. And if there's an AED where you work, Learn to use it. It's very simple. It walks you through everything. I've used it before. It literally speaks to you and walks you through everything. But learn CPR, learn how to use an AED, which is part of a CPR training now, I believe, in most cases. But thank your first responders, police, fire, emergency, all your ambulance, rescue squad personnel, anybody that responds to something, like you said, athletic trainers in this case. Let's don't take them for granted. We want to thank them for what they do every day. So there you have it. That ends the soapbox / from the Cheap Seat Sports Show. So we'll have this out there. Remember to click on that link for Billy's family, the GoFundMe page. I'll have it up there. And please take care of yourselves. Games start tomorrow. Enjoy the weekend. Billy, if you're watching, keep plugging, pal. Tell everybody there. We said that our well wishes are still with them and will be always. We hope you guys are doing as well as you can do. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Also for Dennis Ingraldi from Violin Realty Corporation. I didn't want to forget Dennis, 634 East Landis Avenue in Vineland, New Jersey. That's and Dennis has been a great friend of all the Public John stuff as well. So don't forget Dennis. Their phone number 856-690-9482. Vineland Realty Corporation, 634 East Landis Avenue, Vineland, New Jersey. Once again, their phone number 856-690-9482 for any of your residential or business property needs. Go see Dennis and the crew there on Landis Avenue in Vineland. Thanks, everybody. We will talk to you next week when we go over these picks, and we'll see you then. Have yourselves a great weekend. Enjoy the games, everybody.